Welcome back, everybody. Time once again for another episode of CRM Radio Today. Taking a look at the ever-changing CRM space today and tomorrow. The man who's been riding this tiger for a long time, Paul Petersen. Hey, Paul.
Afternoon, Paul.
Is it a tiger or is it become a tame pussycat out there? I don't know. I thought we had CRM kind of down, and then all of a sudden we're all at home and trying to rethink how we do our business.
Yeah, I think CRM is slow and steady wins the race, so I'd call it the tortoise as opposed to the the hare. But does that make sense?
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's changing. I think there's, like everything in our business world, it seems like CRM has been turned upside down. People are suddenly at home saying, maybe I better go back and see if I got a good list anymore here. Maybe I better rethink how I use this system and what I use it for, and not just accept that, well, I've had it and I don't really know that much about it, but we've been using it forever. They're sort of reevaluating their business processes.
Yeah, and part of it was that CRM has been so accepted as a data record, where, the official record within a company of what this company is, where they are, what they've bought, things like that. And that's a good thing to have. But it sort of got away from what the original intent was. And to your point, maybe people should rethink that. So it's technology. That CRM was technology, but it was designed to support a strategy. And I think many people aren't as versed in the strategy aspects of CRM as they are the technology. For example, we only use 90% of your functionality, or 10% of your functionality, excuse me. Well, then you haven't implemented it as CRM. You've implemented it as a tool, but you got to dig deep, right? And a couple of weeks ago, we talked about then today's part two, a follow-up, and that was, what are some of the strategic elements where technology, helps? And the first one was, we went back to, who are your customers? And so the checklist is, where are your customers today? If they're in your accounting system, they may or may not be the people that you're selling to. All right. So if you're selling to somebody else, where are those people? That was often in the salesperson's diary or a card file box or something like that, right? So CRM allowed you to get all the customer information into one database. Now, what do you do with it? Then it becomes a messaging issue. And I think that's the big issue for a lot of people grappling with now. We're tired of talking about work from home, and I'm tired of messages saying, during these COVID times, I get it. I know where we're at, right? We'll strike this, or maybe this podcast will only last a few weeks. But the idea is, you still have to control your messaging. You still have to be creative and change, and that has to adapt. But the technology shouldn't be changing to become an obstacle. It should be helping you in that objective. So, for example, we talked about customers in the database. That's a great list. Now I can say, find me all my customers in California because I'm going to be there, or find me all our customers in Illinois because they just passed a new law and this product is now certified or requires a material safety data sheet or something like that, right? So you still have to pick and choose, but the technology should help you organize that.
Well, I just thought today you're going to kind of do part two of that conversation about let's reevaluate our CRM from top to bottom here. Let's think about the strategy. We talked about some of the specifics of what you do and don't do with your CRM. Some of it's just dumb. I mean, we have the capability there, but we've just never been pushed to utilize it all. We think, okay, that's enough, and I didn't think about using any more.
So I wanted to cover a couple of other tips, whether you use GoldMine at the basic level where we've excelled, or you use something more complicated, and they're all good choices, and maybe we'll do a session on how to pick the right one for your business. But the idea is, once you get your customers in there, that's number one. Then you can add that, who pays the bill versus who makes a buying decision. But then you have to categorize your customers somehow, and I put forth some categorizations that I like from Petersen Rogers, one-to-one marketing, which was the most valuable customers, right? The ones, the big ones, the ones you work with really hard, that are strategic, that are in your space, that are buying everything they can buy that product category from you. Those are the valuable customers. That's where relationship and making sure nothing changes on their end is important. Then you get the most growable customers, and that's the most important segment. Today, maybe it's called cross-selling or upselling and things like that. But the idea is, you want to go to these customers who aren't buying everything they could from you and see if you can entice them to take full advantage of it.
Now, how do you know? I know it's a double-edged sword. They have to know what you offer. Oh, I didn't know you did that. We've been buying that from somebody else. Yeah, we'd love to buy it from you. But even more importantly, how do you know what you have that they need. Again, if you don't really know your customer that well, you think they've been buying this widget from you. You didn't realize that they had a whole initiative to create something else, and hey, that's a field you excel in too.
That's either the salesperson asking lots of good questions. Obviously, you can recognize if they're in this business, we know they're buying three things. I'm buying the manufacturing oil, I'm buying cleanup stuff. You start to have a common sense approach as to what they should be buying. But asking questions, understanding your customer is a great one. And often it's a surprise. If you ask a customer why they bought, you're often surprised from what your marketing tells you. The marketing messaging is important, but the real reason the customer buys is often very different.
So let me ask you a tough question. We've had this come up on other shows, and maybe you're the one to ask. It seems like CRMs are a great way to gather data about your customer, their name, who's the buyer, who's the contact, track correct. Conversations, other things. But it doesn't seem to prompt me to ask questions like that. There isn't a form in there that says, did you ask your customer this month about new opportunities? It sort of assumes that I'm doing that. Should it be stimulating me to do that?
Basically, yes. Some marketing automation products will do that, but they tend to be very automated. But for example, you could have, in GoldMine, for example, I'll use GoldMine. We have a little workflow tool that says, here is a major customer that hasn't been contacted in 60 days. We recommend you a call. Or here is a pipeline forecast. Here's a forecast that hasn't been updated in 4 weeks, right? Reminders. Your question is the good one. How do I use this data to drive down into it? So, for example, salespeople are very good reactive. Phone's ringing. I'm getting proposals out, right. New leads. This guy calls up. Where's that? I go into the offer of free shrimp tomorrow. You ever heard that expression? You ever seen that on the restaurant? Free shrimp tomorrow?
Yeah, right. Right. Yeah, exactly.
And so my son said, so tomorrow, Dad, when I come by, what does the sign say? Free shrimp tomorrow. He said, basically, there's no free shrimp. And I always equated that as to the stuff that I want to work on that's in the future, I put on a corner on my desk or a file folder in the old days when you had paper and cards. So today, you never get to it because you're so busy, right? So CRM should help remind you to do those things, not make them mandatory. I don't like CRM to be rigid and structured, but it should say, here's a list of 5 people you should call that are big customers, or here are proposals that haven't been followed up on. You need to get the scoop because you went through the problem of the quote. Just recording it, knowing that it exists. And there are other pieces with the data. A lot of CRMs are being used, big analytics, the big picture, but I like the contact management that says, if you have that second tier, most global customers, if they're not calling you, which is likely, are you calling them? A rep could go in and say, find me all my MGCs and my most global customers, and I'm going to start just calling them a little bit at a time. Now, you could set the system up to give them one a day. Call this one, right? Little reminders. That's where you start to get strategic benefit because you're using your last interaction with them. And I think CRM has often been to track all that post stuff, but they don't give the sales rep the ability to do those things. And that's one difference,
And that, one of my
some systems are so locked down, you can't filter. Like I just said, find me all the.
Yeah,
so
no,
if
exactly.
I type out a company name, I can't get my records. I get everybody's. You need to filtering. So that's an important element of it. And salespeople have to step up and say, this is how I'm data driven.
So this gets to my common complaint I hear over and over again, that most CRMs are there for the management to collect information from me, the sales staff, the salesperson, and less about helping me do my job. It's just me reporting up the chain, who I called, how many calls I made, when's the last time I called them, so they can monitor my activities. Whereas I don't think enough salespeople see this as a tool that they can use to make more money. Am I the only one that hears that?
That has been a downfall, a common problem with implementations. Yeah, you've implemented it to beat me up as opposed to, so I like to change the dialogue a little bit. So, for example, we talked about customers. I get my database in there. I can now market to them, right? That's number one. One last piece with customers, the listening part. What are they calling in about that complain about? Is it shipping, billing errors, questions about a product, things like that? You can go overboard in tracking those, but if you track some of them, you can start to answer the question, what's bothering my customers? And then maybe slice it by my most valuable customers, my global ones. Are these things getting in the way, right? So if you use that data from support, tracking support issues, and there are multiple ways to do it. You can have modules, but Once you get the database, now I can track as they call in with other inquiries. We had Todd Cohen on last show about everybody's in selling, or everybody's selling something. And that was the whole company. Every time they have an interaction, you have a chance to win loyalty and perhaps, a sale. Keeping track of customer service issues is important to help you know where your loyalty, and this goes back to the primary premise, where you're at risk of losing a customer based on the things that they're reporting. The issues that affect big customers who may be on just-in-time inventory, for example, you have a slow shipment for them, whoops, you shut down the line, right? Mm-hmm. If you're selling that same product to small manufacturing, they may not care if it's a day or two late. So you sort of have to have a sense of what issues could most have the biggest impact on your customer base. The other piece of this was Salesforce automation, and that's what we were getting to. Mm-hmm. Who puts all this data in? It's the sales guys. So flipping the dialogue is, what's the benefit to them? Number one, this is how you get your lead. Anything from the website, anything that comes into the front desk, the lead has got to be in the system. So you're driving them in there to say, this is where your money is, and do everything you can to get them as much information on that lead from the website as possible. It shows up on their activity list. Make that easy to find. Here are your new leads. For many CRM systems, that information you have to click through. In GoldMine, we made that activity list the primary thing that you see when you open up. When you open up, here are the things you've promised to do, and I use the word promised. I told you I'm going to call you Monday at 3. GoldMine, a good contact manager, a good CRM will keep track of that and remind you in one place. But
your accountability manager, you made a promise. Let's keep you accountable to that.
Well, with your customer, it's not just accountable within the company, but to your customer.
Right.
And so that you don't forget because you're busy doing other stuff, right? Here are the things that I have to do. And then getting new leads there, that starts them out. Because if there's information, they start to learn, right? So that's a benefit. So building benefit for that end user is the important thing. What makes their job easier? And often that was missed.
I agree. And I'm going to show my naivete. Maybe it's been a while since I've been out in the field carrying a bag myself here, but I guess I didn't think that's so obvious. The company's collecting leads, the marketing department, the website, other leads are coming in. In the old days, they just sent them to you. They'd hand it to you on a sheet, or now I assume on an email or something.
Email,
If you don't,
Post-it notes. Yeah.
If you put it in the CRM though, now I'm more excited about that up. It's not just, groaning, I got to enter data. You gave it to me, and now you want me to be the free data entry person. If you enter it in there for me and say, ding, 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 I got a little live one for you here, go look in your CRM, right. I start to see the CRM as my friend and not my enemy.
Yeah, because the CRMs, and at the complex level, you won't give the sales rep the lead until they've passed a couple of gates. They've got what they call marketing qualified. In a smaller, more modest business, get it from your website. Because what happens? Somebody fills in a form on your website. That becomes an email. Now, you can't track them. You can't remember. Mm-hmm. And they're all in an inbox, right? So you've got to import that, save as much data repetition as, entry as possible. That's absolutely for sure. So now they're in the system using that. And then the very next step is to say, okay, as I engage with them, in some businesses, it's call-driven. The more calls you make, the more successful you will be, and there are tracking mechanisms for that, either in your phone system or your CRM. But many businesses, it's just, I can't tell you how many people say to me, I can't believe you're calling me back. I was just at your website 15 minutes ago. I go, well, we have real-time import of that lead. It tells me whether it's a new prospect or contact or one for an existing one. When I click on the activity, I can see the record. And I always browse the record real quick. When was the last time anybody in my company talked to them about a sale or support issue? Was it 6 months ago, and so this is a new encounter? Or was it just yesterday? So that means it's probably something going on here, and I'm now being dragged in. That's where you help out.
And is it difficult to do that, to import it from the website? Because I know in my own radio station, people call in and want to be a guest or something here. That just sends me an email, and then I have to enter it into the CRM, which half the time I don't do.
There are many modern APIs and things like that you can do. And then on the scope of things, they're not particularly complex. GoldMine uses an email. The email comes from the website to us, and we parse it. You list the fields that you want to import. We parse it. We can create the record or check for a duplicate, and then take the next step of schedule an action for the sales rep, typically the sales rep, to call. We can even assign it to territory. Oh, this is Lisa's. Mm-hmm. This is Canada. Go up here, right? You can have rules. Those are the things you want to look at in your CRM and say, how easy is it to set those up? Do they exist? And even at a basic level can really, really, really help. And then some of the other benefits are common documents. I need to send you a welcome letter, or I need to send you a document that has legal wording in it, and you want to make sure that you have it. Marketing wants to make sure that the business communication has the same messaging across it. So you can call up Word templates, email templates, merges data from the customer record. You mentioned not knowing what they have or whatnot. GoldMine in particular, and any CRM, can be customized to store that information. So what I encourage is, if you're looking at something and there's a blank, the salesperson can say, I'm going to fill that blank in. But now you don't have to fill in the blanks that are already there that somebody else covered, right? So it's called the qualification by multiple cuts. A different person asks the same questions of the customer. You want to build on their information profile as you go over time. And I think you wanted to go to, we'll go to a break here, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit more about SFA and marketing and some of the other tips.
We know you rely on your CRM system, and it's usually a love-hate relationship. Most CRM systems, well, let's face it, they're expensive. They're hard to understand. People don't use them properly. And you're probably paying for features that you don't even want. If that's your case, then maybe it's time to simplify. It's time to get more from your CRM. Why don't you go back to the original? Trust GoldMine. We helped pioneer the industry, after all. GoldMine CRM is, well, it's simple, it's affordable, and it's proven. If all those sound appealing to you, if you're just tired of the CRM headaches that you're getting from trying to implement something that's just too complicated, too expensive, and too much for you to figure out, then why not go back to the original? Visit GoldMine today, goldmine.com. Boy, that spot says it all, doesn't it? We've got a love-hate relationship with our CRMs here.
Yeah.
Hey, we see them as a necessary tool, but too often it becomes a burden, or we find it's just there to track us, and it doesn't help us do our job. I could do it so much easier if they just get rid of this damn thing.
Well, so let's talk about after customers, which was the main reason CRM came about, and what do you do to retain them and communicate with them, right? Okay, customer service taken care of. There was another field going on called Salesforce automation, and that was to provide tools to the sales rep to schedule appointments, do quotes.
Automate follow-up, the simple stuff, the procedural stuff. You need a brochure, you need a quote, you need a something.
Yes. So that was a separate little group that then, got merged with CRM technology to say, well, prospects become customers. Therefore, why not have them in one database? Because they used to be in different bits. And of course, as you can imagine, I started out with a Casio Boss organizer. There was absolutely everything was manually typed in. We had Palm 7s. Remember Palm
7s? Oh, I loved my Palm. Yeah, right.
But those were things that were focused on the sales rep. And to some extent, GoldMine, Act, Maximizer, PackRat, they all came out in the 90s and were actually some of the first database technologies that people could put their hands on that weren't IBM DB2 and things like that, right? But it was focused on, the salespeople loved it because the good ones knew how to leverage it. They kept those lists. They were list-driven. They would plug in those calls, and they'd have their list of calls to go up. They could look at the record and view notes and things like that real quickly. As technology evolved, now you can do that from your phone. Right? One of the mistakes some CRM companies have made with their mobile devices are they want everything to put on the phone. And I went to somebody and said, how are you going to build a quote with 500,000 line items? You'll be scrolling forever. That's not something you do on your phone. You keep track of your appointments, you schedule more, you follow up, you respond to emails, have all that link back to the database, but keep it simple as you're doing something. So the key to Salesforce automation was, what's the benefit for the end user? So I mentioned leads, right? Well, if you plug in their quota, they could see how they're doing against quota. So there was a way to see how they're doing as business wins and close. When you look at a forecast, often a forecast can be a negative interaction. You're telling management yes or no.
I think it's almost always a negative interaction. They want you to be real, but then if you're real, they get really mad.
Yeah, that's a good way to phrase it. Well, I've always called the forecast the agenda. If you are a manager who can coach your team to understand what's going on at that account where they are, you then can offer suggestions without taking the deal. I like to use it to say, have we covered the bases? So to me, it's my discussion point. If somebody doesn't have something to talk about, that's another issue, right? But even your good salespeople, you can go through, and sometimes you can mention a tip or two that helps them be productive. I like to use their forecast. Reveal their forecast to me. I try to help them close that business and win it. Yes, there are times where you have to walk away, but what you find is that when you expose a forecast, the sales rep now is not winging it. You can tell who's faking it and start to teach them.
Right.
So
that's the key. Do you see it as a tool to help or a tool to hurt? Do you see it as a way to grind them or to grow them?
I like to grow. And then, frankly, as a sales rep myself, and I was a little technology, I would do things like, for example, I would look at my customer database and say, oh, here's a big customer, say Amoco, for example, who bought 5 copies. Now, this is a big company, right? I don't know. Is 5 enough? Could they use 10? Right? So I went in thinking I'd sell another 5 or 10. And many times I was able to, we licensed the whole company. Well, everybody on the manufacturing floor needs this, or every chemical representative needs this, tool. It's like, oh my gosh. So I used a little data to do some cold calling into a place, where they already had the product. That was called data mining, managing your territory. Mapping was big. I like the people, oh, your mobile should tell me, if I'm having coffee in Starbucks, they should tell me there's a prospect nearby.
Yeah, right.
No,
we've seen those. Yeah.
That should have done that before you plan that meeting. I'm going to Des Moines next week. Who else is in Des Moines that I can visit, right? Or we're having a trade show in Houston. Say, I'm going to be in town for the trade show. Come see me there and generate traffic for the trade show floor. Or I'm going to stay an extra day or two and visit you, right? Pick an anchor client, somebody big, right? So I use that data to help manage my territory. And the other one is pipeline. Here's the other thing about pipeline. You start to put a time estimate on it. Every salesperson knows I need some business next quarter and in 3 quarters. But basically what they do is they forecast everything for the end of this quarter. I'll bet you in most sales organizations, everything was, as of Monday, was scheduled for June 30th. And just recently, everybody started to flip everything to July, right? Because they know it's not going to come in. They're just rolling it. I rather know, when does the client tell me I can get this done? Based on their time frame, budget, whatever it might be, right? That's your forecast that you want to try to work towards. And then try to maybe ease it forward, right? So I found the data and forecasting as a way to help me measure my pipeline, what stage people are in. I was honest with myself. I was honest with my boss about what it was. I would say, well, we can try to go in early, but they don't have a board meeting until next week, in a month. So it doesn't matter. We're going to, give stuff away. So pipeline helps you manage your territory and helps you work on those things that need development now to yield a sale later, as opposed to handling all clients as everything could possibly close this month. And that's not real.
Could you do a show on what you just said, data and forecasting? Because I don't know many salespeople who are really good data scientists, and I know even fewer of them that are really good at forecasting. They fudge the forecast to get them through the meeting, and then they sort of have their own secret forecast in their pocket here that they really believe.
You uncovered a hidden truth. There is a hidden truth that most deals that close do not appear on the forecast.
Yeah, that's right.
Because they're hiding.
Because you always want to under-promise and over-deliver. Hey, look at me. I pulled one out of the hat. No, I've been working on this for 6 months here. I just didn't tell you.
So forecasting to me is the way that daily productivity. I found by the system keeping me track of who I have to call, I was much, much, much more organized in getting to everybody quickly. And with CRMs, you can schedule calls for other people on the team. So now I don't have to send an email. I just schedule you a task. And ideally, GoldMine has a cool feature where RSVP. I schedule something for you because I need your help. When you do it, it sends me a note saying you just completed that task. So once again, that prevents me from following up. But you've got to have everybody in the company sort of geared to that. And then the other last thing we'll end up with, if I've got the database of customers and prospects, so once again, I call my customers now to find out who could be a referral. I call them up, find out why how's it going, how's the product. Now I got a referral. But the other thing is, you ever fish, Paul?
Oh, yeah, sure. I'm from the Midwest.
We don't have a lot of time here. But, you catch a fish, it's not big enough. What do you do with it?
You throw it back.
Yeah, throw it back. Well, that's what they do with leads. No, not ready to buy. Done. So it goes off into some file or whatever, and marketing's got to hopefully drag the net and catch them again. One little simple thing in
usually
your CRM
it's a big
system.
Round file at the bottom of my desk. That's where I usually put it.
Yeah, there's a wire basket. Yeah, these are the people I'm going to call tomorrow. Free shrimp tomorrow. But I love that expression. But if you have a simple code, so the sales rep talks to them. Okay, you're not ready to buy, but you could buy in the future. I call that a future prospect. You have a code that throws them back to marketing to say, let's keep in touch with these people because they've already bit the hook on our initial pitch. Now we have a slightly different message for future prospects, success stories. Other customers have done this. Why are you waiting? A little bit of that. And now it goes back let marketing handle all the messaging, but it's now on the salesperson's database. So there are some things that you can help with Salesforce automation.
I want to have you do a future thing on data and forecasting, because I don't think most of us know how to do that very well. And I want something about the 5 features of GoldMine or any other CRM that I'm not thinking of, because I bet there's a bunch of hidden. You've given me 2 or 3 ideas out here already. I bet there's a whole bunch more that I'm not even thinking of, much less using.
We'll do that. Yes, those are good suggestions, and we'll do that. We'll have a guest coming up on voice to text, and then we'll do a session on CRM strategies, implementation, some technology notes. We can do data.
Give me the 5 hidden gems I'm missing here, and the 5 ways to use data to get to improve my forecasting here.
Very good. Thanks, Paul. We'll do that.
All right.
Surf's up, dude.
Thanks as always here.
Hey, good talking with you.
Well, there you go. Another idea, another example of why you got to tune in. There's a lot more to CRM than you realize, and a lot more that we have to learn about this subject. People like Paul and the guests he brings on CRM Radio today, right here on the Funnel Radio channel for at-work listeners like you.